Hello, hello. This is Tea with the Druid, episode 319. My name is Philip Carr-Gomm, and Tea with the Druid is brought to you by the Order of Bards, Ovates, and Druids. So, on this lovely sunny August afternoon, I have the great pleasure of having a guest with me who I have admired for years, who has the most lovely, lovely voice that is just wonderful to hear. But not only does her voice sound wonderful, but also the message that Manda is giving us is so clear, so crystal clear. And I feel that in Manda Scott's, who you will meet in a second, presentation, it's so very topical and so much what we need to hear, message we need to hear. So I'm going to press the magic button and bring Manda onto the stage. And there she is. Hello, Manda.
Hello. Thank you. I love your intro. It's just so beautiful and so soulful. So thank you for the invitation.
It's lovely, isn't it? That little piece of music by a wonderful composer, Charlie Roscoe, came out of a dream, funnily enough. In the middle of the night, I had this voice. They talk about the still small voice, but I had a booming voice saying, use the golden mean. And I was working on some healing CDs at the time. And I asked this composer, Charlie Roscoe, to use something using the golden mean.
Right.
And so that those particular notes, which are very soothing, aren't they? And healing.
Really, totally.
Really
and
well.
The bird song in the background. The combination of the two together is amazing. Yeah, it's beautiful.
That's lovely. So Manda, thank you so much for coming on Tea with a Druid. And as I said in the introduction, I've admired your work from a distance for a long time. And when I first heard your podcast, Accidental Gods, your introductory explanation for what it's designed to do, what the purpose of the podcast was so crystal clear. It was like washing my face in crystal clear water. That's how it felt. It's like, of course, and I just wonder if are you able to share with our viewers what that is?
What the intro is.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'd have to start at the top because I don't have this written down. So it's, hey people, welcome to Accidental Gods, to the podcast where we believe that another world is still possible, and that if we all work together, there is still time to lay the foundations for a future that we would be proud to leave to the generations that come after us. There we go, that.
That just makes me want to cry. It opens my heart.
Thank you.
And that's it, isn't it? That's it. I reckon that everybody watching this now, that's exactly what they want. It's like as do so many more.
I hope so.
And you say in that if enough people, that's what you're aiming for, aren't you? And we should all be aiming for, I guess.
Trying to get that critical mass of people who are heart connected with themselves, with each other, and with the web of life. Yeah. And once we have the critical mass, I think tipping points happen. I think there's quite a lot of narrative around what the tipping points are based on previous events that have happened in the politics of our culture. And our culture is a very particular culture. And we've only ever asked for increases in the franchise. And we want women to have votes, or we want you to allow gay people to get married, all of which is great. But they were not saying we need to completely break down the existing system and build a new one. So I think the tipping point is going to be a bit bigger than it will be okay to expand the franchise of the extractive system a little bit further. But I think tipping points are still a thing. Complexity is a thing. Emergence into new systems is a thing. And so all of my work now is building towards how do we reach that critical mass of people. And I interviewed someone on the podcast 2-3 weeks ago, Jenny Gretva, who's a designer in Denmark, and she's written a book, and she's been asked to design a school based on donut economic lines for kids, things like that. Amazing. And she was at a conference somewhere in Scandinavia, mainly hedge funders, and she said 5 people stood on the platform at different times during the day and said, we need to be coming from a place of love. I was, Jenny, that wouldn't have happened 5 years ago. And she said, no, that wouldn't have happened last year. That the tipping point, the ripples are happening, things are shifting.
And that's an incredible message to give at a time when it would be so easy to say, well, yes, the tipping point is here, but it seems to be a tipping point
Yes.
into utter despair and disaster, with Gaza,
Yes.
with rioting in England now, and stuff in America and
Yeah.
Sudan, and all the whole
Russia, Ukraine, all of those things.
yeah, all of those things. What would you say to somebody who said that to you?
That all of these things are happening. It depends who I'm talking to be honest, Philip. I'm talking to you. And so what I'd say to you is, I think there has for a very long time been what we might call something in the global human psyche, or the psyche of our culture. Francis Weller has a differentiation between the initiation culture and the trauma culture. And the initiation culture is how we grew and what you and I are trying to build, where we know ourselves connected to the greater web of life. And the trauma culture is traumatized because that connection, that inherent felt sense connection, has been severed. And in the human psyche of that culture is something that feeds on distress and despair and terror and pain and all of the things that assail us. And it's quite happy there. I think when we deal with these things in healings, we know that they're basically very wounded entities that are not in the right place, and that we offer enough compassion, they can move towards a compassionate space. But it is there, and it's feeding, and it's being fed a lot. But balancing that is something that is genuinely connected to the heart mind of the universe and the web of life. And the web of life is a complex, hyper complex, emergent process of which we are an integral part. And if we can connect to that with our own heart mind and ask of it, what do you want me to do in the moment, and respond in real time, it too is growing. And the more of us that can ask that question and can connect to it, the more resilient it becomes, and the more capable it becomes of responding rather than reacting. And so, yes, we see these things, but complexity is by its very nature unpredictable. And the emergence into new systems, you can never see the new system from the old system. And I think part of what I'm trying to do with Accidental Gods, and what I think you're trying to do here, is get ourselves to that emergent edge of what Indy Johar calls interbecoming, where we are right at that edge of potential, where all change happens. And when the emergence into the new system happens, we won't know it's happened until we're looking back. But a long time ago, Ilya Prigogine, decades ago, not millennia, said, when any system reaches maximal complexity, it has two paths. It can either crash into extinction, or it can emerge into a new system. And I would say we are pretty close to maximal complexity. And so our job, anyone listening, I think our job is to be heart connected to the web, offer ourselves as self-aware nodes on the web of life in service to life, and see what happens.
Yeah. That's so clear. Thank you so much. That's beautifully put and so well expressed. And yeah, I feel I want to sort of sit with that and let that settle. Let's let that settle. Thank you. Okay. Bless.
I brought my tea. We could just sit and tea for a moment or two, have tea with our druids.
And tell me about, and I really do mean that, I think to do justice to what you just said, rather than us trying to kind of go into it and talk about it at an intellectual level, it was so crystalline and so clear that let's let that settle. And I know, for one, I'm going to listen to that again in order to let that settle.
Thank you.
So there's that. And then I want to move from there. So Accidental Gods is a podcast you started about 5 years ago, was it?
It'll be 5 years this coming winter solstice. Yeah.
Yeah. Where you're looking at topics around this area, and it grew out of. Did your shamanic training that you offer? Did it grow out of the podcast, or did the podcast grow out?
The latter. So I've been teaching years and years and years ago. I wrote. I wrote The Dreaming, and this was the first of 4.
Eagle, and that's a novel about A historical novel about Boudica?
Yes, it's the first of there's 4 of them. So it's
Oh,
basically
wow.
one great big novel split into 4. So because at the point when I wrote this, nobody had ever written of who we were before the Romans came.
Right.
They'd only ever looked at Tacitus and written, the revolt, and they'd only ever generally written about it from the Roman perspective. And I'm not interested in the Roman perspective,
When you
except
say they, you mean
a
fiction?
previous novelist. Yes,
Novelist.
yes.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
To the extent that I was already working, my spiritual path has been shamanic for decades. And when I got the kind of shamanic nudge to do this, I found out I was writing crime novels at the time. And previously I'd been a veterinary surgeon. So I was already breaking stuff.
Yeah.
And I phoned up a friend because I just sat under a tree for quite a long time anyway, it was a long story. And the only other person I knew who wrote historical stuff and said, like, what about it? And she went, no, you can't do this because your publishers already got you as a crime novelist. And anyway, if there was enough to write about Boudica, I would already have done it. So there isn't, so you can't. And as you know, when you've made an agreement with the spirits, you don't get to go, no, I'm sorry, my friend said don't do it. But I went away and did the research. And by the time I only spent about a week, I ended up with a 23-page synopsis. And most novels, you write, 6 lines that go, it'll be about this, but actually we all know it won't, because by the time I've written the book, it'll have changed. But you'll like it and you'll publish it, and your publishers go, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
23 pages, because I had to prove to myself and to them that there was enough to write about. There was so much. And then we started it as a trilogy. It was planned and sold to publishers as a trilogy. And then got to book 2 and went, guys, it's going to have to be 4 books. I'm really sorry. Right. And I could have written 6. There was so much in there. Fantastic. Really, of exploring, for me then, that was our indigenous spirituality before the trauma culture was brought in by Rome. Who were we? And how could that be? And how would we live? And how do we connect to the web of life then? And my thought then was that if I can do this in the guise of history, it's non-threatening, and then you can use it as a template for now. And I went around the country going, this is who we were, this is who we could be. Blithely thinking that this would end predatory capitalism and we'd all begin to live a more connected life. But I've just come back from the Great Green Gathering and then the Nature Culture Connection Camp. And there were people at both who had read these books 20 years ago, and they are shaping their lives around them. So it wasn't a complete disaster or a complete waste of time. And I learned a lot. And I started teaching, because I said to everyone, this is my blueprint. If you want to know what to do, you read this and you can do it. And 3 weeks into we used to do book tours then. People hadn't got anything better to do pre-internet, or at least pre-Facebook. And people came at the end of the 3-week tour, and I went, I have seen you before and I've signed your book. And they go, yes, but we want to know how to do it. And I'm going, it's in the book. And they, no, we've read the books now, and we don't understand. So I started teaching, thinking I would teach 2 courses and that would be it. And that was 24 years ago. And now now we do 20 or so a year, and I'm passing the basic ones to my senior apprentice, who is utterly amazing and is going to sail far beyond anything that I can do. So that came first. Accidental Gods as a membership program came after Winter Solstice Visions of 2019, where I'd got my first group all the way around the wheel, and I went to the fire and went, yay, look, 9 people. I got them all the way around. And the fire said, 9 people in 16 years is not going to cut it. You need to start teaching at scale. Bugger. Because I don't want to do one-to-one. I don't want to do personal. The shamanic stuff, I need small groups. Yeah. For me to feel safe. And that's not at scale. So then Accidental Gods arose and became a membership program online where listen to this set of recordings today, and then that tomorrow, and then that the next day. And my target audience here is a single mother with 3 kids under the age of 10 living in a tower block somewhere. You've got very little time, but you really want to learn how to connect to the web, because I think the next evolutionary step of humanity has to be conscious evolution, the evolution of our consciousness, consciously chosen. And that the only way that'll happen is if we take our rightful place as nodes in the overall web of life. And we're not the only node of consciousness by any means, but we are a node of consciousness, such that we can ask, what do you want me to do? And respond to the answers in real time. Nothing else matters, I don't think.
Absolutely. And I don't know whether this has been your experience, but mine is that over the last, as you say, 20 years, 30 years, there are so many people who are, I don't know what the word is, people use sort of awakened, and that always seems a bit unfair, suggesting that everybody
They
else
were asleep before.
is,
Yes.
which is kind of rude. But people who very quickly you realize that they're switched on to this, they're on the same
Yes.
page, that they
Yep.
and that's incredibly heartening. I mean,
Yeah,
I was
really.
brought up when I was young, I was brought up on the sort of, the concept of the adept,
Yes.
the enlightened being who was so superior,
Yeah.
there was one in one of the series of fictionalized books called The Initiate. The adept, Morwood Hague was his name. He used to smoke cigarettes to bring his vibrations down. That was his excuse for being a change maker. Was that
Far enough to be able to talk to ordinary mortals.
to be able to talk to ordinary mortals, he had to reduce the level of his frequency, by having players, number 6 or whatever it is. So this idea that somebody is different from you and far away and somehow
Yes.
has achieved
And
a sort of
exotic
and
Yeah,
exalted
yeah.
and all that stuff. And now what's lovely I experience is this much more egalitarian feel where
Yes.
it's not about finding individual salvation or individual enlightenment, but it's a group story that we're in. It's in a group process. So, no, that's lovely. And recently, we'll put your Accidental Gods, the website in the notes so that people can listen. But you've recently had another book come out, haven't you? Tell us about that.
I have. I happen to have a copy here. Yes.
What is the price?
There we go. So
Any Human Power.
Any Human Power.
Yeah.
So I wrote a bunch of historical stuff, and in the end, I was writing about World War II because big story, doesn't matter. And I got to the end of that, and I had also just another shamanic nudge. I'd ended up doing a master's in regenerative economics at Schumacher, and economics, I promise you, was nowhere on my radar at all until about a month before this master's started. And it completely overturned my life. It opened a lot of doors. It's partly the reason I'm doing the podcast, was to give voice to some of the stuff that I realized most people don't know. And because we have all the answers, I think that's one of the keys that I really want to get across to the podcast is people are doing the stuff that we need to do. It's just joining all those dots. And the joining of those dots, I realized, another shamanic event, but we haven't got time. But I got an instructor to go and sit on the hill, went to sat on the hill, and what came was the start of this. And the fact that I thought I'd stopped writing because I'm doing a podcast. You record it today, it goes out on Monday. It's probably not obsolete in the space of that time. I started writing Any Human Power on the 9th of August 2021. It was published on the 30th of May 2024. I have the resources pages on my website so that I can regularly update it, because if I put it in the book, it would have been obsolete at the point of publication. However, what came on the hill was the real need to weave a story that made sense of everything that I was gathering in the podcast. Because most people with the best will in the world are not going to sit down and read Kate Raworth and Jason Hickel and all of the others and build a narrative out of that. And so what I got was that we needed to have things that were anchored now, that dystopias, please, if you're a writer and you're listening, never write another dystopia. The world does not need to see how bad things could be if we get it wrong. And we don't need the energy of that.
Exactly. The amount of
such a waste.
Writing is such a waste. It's a bit, I wanted to, sometime I was talking about crime. Why is there so much crime? It's like every other drama on the television.
Yeah, no.
There's a murder.
Because I know. Yes, I used to be a member of the Crime Rights Association because that's why I started writing. Partly it's easy.
Yeah.
And it gives you a natural structure. I mean, we used to sit in panels and spend hours talking about why do people do this. And there's lots of answers, but we don't even need things that are predicated on the existing system anymore. They are just propaganda for business as usual, and business as usual has to stop. We can't keep going with this. But then utopias are not any more useful because there's always at least a jump cut from where we are to this wonderful, amazing unicorns tripping through the bluebells that we could get to, or they're on another planet. Ursula Le Guin is one of my total heroes, and she wrote amazing utopias, but they They are literally on another planet.
Yeah.
And so we need what Rupert Reed, he coined the term, calls through-topias that start exactly here and walk us through on a path that feels like we could do it. Two, something that is at least opening the doors to a future that we would be proud to leave to the generations that come after us. I want to look in the eyes of 7 generations down the line when I do the journeys, look them in the eye and go, guys, did we do it? And have them look back at us and go, yes, you did. Yeah, you left it way too late. You made a whole bunch of mistakes along the way. But when it really mattered, you coalesced around a shared set of values that were different to the extractive values of the trauma culture. Yeah. We were not born just to pay bills and then die. And we all know this at some level. But that's what our system is giving us. Yeah. And we need a new system.
Fantastic. And is that, when you talk about the through-topia, is your book then a through-topia?
It is. We're calling it, it's a through-topian thriller. Yes, it's set in 2023 because I kept wanting to update it and we had to cut at some point. And it's a political thriller, and it's got a thriller arc, but it ends on the night after a general election. But, and this is not a spoiler, the vision that I had up the hill was somebody of about my age, lying on a bed, 15-year-old grandson at her side, and he's saying, when you come home, can we go up the hill and watch the crows go to bed? Because that's what I'd been doing, sitting up the hill. And she says, no, I'm not coming home. You know this. I am dying. There is no coming home from this. We've talked about this. And in the course of the ensuing conversation, he says, you're the only one that gets me. I do not want to live in a world with you not in it. And she realizes he's serious. And she says, okay, I don't know what comes next, but if you really need me and you call, if it's at all possible, I promise I will come. And she and he and we see the gods pause in their labors and go, okay, that's a promise. You are held to that. And then she dies. And the whole of the rest of the book is told from her perspective, caught in the between, which you will know, between the lands of life and the lands of death. And her primary guide is a crow. Okay, my camera's all right. And then she's taught how to go into the void and do the work to split the timelines, to see all the futures in which he does kill himself. But with the implication that if you're there, you may take agency and create another future that doesn't exist yet. And she goes into the void 3 times, once for him, and it's not really much of a spoiler to say she manages to stop him killing himself. Otherwise, it's a very short book. And it's not. It's 180,000 words. And then another time for the family and the movement that arises around them. And then a third time for the whole of humanity, to see the ways that we could power the bus off the edge of the cliff in the ways that we are doing, all the ways we could crash and burn. But the implication is, if you can see those and you're there is a chance that you can take agency and weave a different future. And so then what can she do 15 years later? And what can we do? I wanted to use the dreaming. I can't not. In all of the ways that we could understand how to evolve, because I also wanted people to understand that we can't do this alone. We need the connection to the web of life. Our head minds are not designed to grasp complexity. We're really good at complicated, which is linear stuff. We're really bad at complex. We end up with dumb ideas like geoengineering, which is the only thing you can say for certainty about that is it will trigger the law of unintended consequences. We don't know what will happen, and it will be irreversible. And it's a catastrophe. But if we can connect to the web and ask for help, the help is there, I'm sure, with the work that you do. If you ask, everything around us is desperate to offer help.
Desperate to help,
Really desperate. You just need to ask and listen. Learn to listen and respond. And so the book really is, here's actual, it ends on the night after a general election, as I said. Here's political structures that Audrey Tang has already done in Taiwan. This already exists. This is how liquid democracy could happen. This is how we could create a forked government. These are ways that we could begin to take agency legally and peacefully. I think peaceful is absolutely essential. The new paradigm cannot be built on the values of the old paradigm of power over. It has to be power with. And it has to be built on trust. And so all of these are quite big social questions, but at the core is the help is there if you ask for it.
Fantastic. That sounds just wonderful. That sounds just wonderful. I hope it's made into a film or a TV
Oh, I
series.
would love that. If anybody's watching can make that
Yes,
happen.
yes, yes.
Yeah, that would get it to more people for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Manda, I know we could talk for a long time because these subjects are vital. They're the most important subject I think that anyone can tackle, essentially.
Yes. Yes.
And Tea with the Druid is designed to be short and sweet, though.
Thank
And
you.
let's talk again
will.
in more detail another time. But now you very kindly said that you would lead us in a meditation.
I did.
Yeah,
Yes.
and for those of you who are new with Tea with the Druid, so you may not know the format, we always finish with a meditation. The idea is Monday evening, start of the week, and we just have a time where we allow ourselves to drop into a different state of mind, which we often really need so much. So over to you, Manda.
All right. Are you okay if I start and end with a chime?
Yes, absolutely. And in fact, I'm going to remove myself from the screen. So, oh no, I've removed you. Let me try to get.
I am back. All right, people. So settle. Make sure you're comfortable. Chime at the beginning, chime at the end. So bring yourselves fully into your physical body. Really feel your seat on the chair. If you have your feet flat on the floor, really have a sense of the earth beneath you. Send roots down from wherever you are contacting the floor and then the ground. Send roots down into the living topsoil. And then from there, down into the subsoil, down through the rock layers of the earth, far, far deep beneath us, down into the magma layers of molten rock, and down into the white, hot, molten metal at the heart of the earth. Have a sense of rooting, connecting your heart to the heart of the earth, and then send a cord up from the crown of your head to the heights of the sky so that you connect the heart of the earth through your heart to the heart mind of the universe, and the heart mind of the universe through your heart to the heart of the earth. Part of what humanity is for is to be the living, aware connection between the earth and the sky and the earth. And then with that awareness, bring your sense of self to the edge place where your skin meets the air and the air meets your skin. Really attend to all of the uncovered places, your face and your hands, maybe your legs and your feet. If there's a breeze around you, feel the air move. Even if the air is still, feel the temperature change at this edge place where the physicality of yourself ends and the rest of the all that is begins, knowing that your awareness of self can extend beyond it. And then when you have that, bring all of your attention to that small patch of skin where the base of your nose meets your upper lip, so that when you breathe in through your nose, you can feel the air move. It's very subtle. You need to really put attention on this place. So do that for 3 full breath cycles, all the way in and all the way out. And then on the next breath, follow the breath in, cold at the back of your throat, and then down into your heart space as your ribs move out and down and your diaphragm sinks. Bring your awareness down with it, down into your heart space. Feel the infinite space of your heart, with your breastbone an infinite space in front and your back an infinite space behind in your ribs, an infinite space side to side, your head high up above and your feet way down below, and you in the center, in the space of your heart. And then like this, with our bodies grounded and boundaried and breathing, bring your imaginal self, your dream self, up and out with me. And all of us together are going back through time and through space, leaving behind the time of technology, and then leaving behind the time of industry, and then leaving behind the time of agriculture, and then leaving behind the time of foraging and hunting, until we come to a primordial landscape in the time before the people were here. And we are all gathered in a circle around a fire. And we sit in our circle around this fire that we have built. And behind you is a pile of sticks gathered from this land. And you can reach back and select one and lean forward and put it onto the fire. Watch it light, watch the fire grow. And you can look into the heart of this fire in this time before the people were here, and connect the fire of your own heart to the fire in front of us. Breathe in the heat, smell the smoke, see the sparks dancing up to the sky. And if this fire, this light, this heat, this spark of new beginnings, in the time before the people were here, if it were to give you one word of wisdom, or one thought, or one idea, as a gift to carry you through, let your heart-mind be open now to whatever arises, as a spark, as a gift. And thank the fire. And if you were to give something back, an idea or a thought, not a part of yourself, a concept, something to give to the fire, that it would value and that you value, what idea or thought would you give to the fire? Give it now, and then reach back and lift another stick and lay it on the fire so that those who come after come to a fire well tended. And then we rise and we thank the fire. And we turn and we thank this place, this primordial landscape in the time before the people were here. There are mountains to the north, high with snow on the peaks. There's a primeval ocean to the south, primordial forest to the west, and to the east, a wide savanna and cliffs and the place of the rising sun and of the rising moon. And we thank this place. And we turn our attention back along the timelines. And we move back through the time of foraging and hunting. Back through the time of farming. Back through the time of industry, and back through the time of technology, and back to the time and the place that we left. Back to the body that we left, bounded and grounded and breathing. And we take in a breath. And we bring our attention to that edge place where our skin meets the air and the air meets our skin. And we reconnect to the roots that go down into the heart of the earth and to the cord that goes up to the height of the sky. We connect again the heart mind of the universe through our heart to the heart of the earth, and the heart of the earth through our heart to the heart mind of the universe. And we feel our body. And we roll our shoulders, move our fingers, move our toes. And with a very soft gaze, and very slowly and very gently, open our eyes and look around us to anchor ourselves back in this time and this place, bringing with us the gift of the primordial fire. Welcome back.
Manda, thank you so much. That was just lovely. Just lovely.
Thank you.
Honor, thank you for coming on Tea with the Druid. I hope you come again for more tea, and I look forward to seeing you again. And thank you.
Thank you.
Goodbye, everyone. Have a lovely week. Many blessings. Much love to you. And next week, Tea with the Druid will be with Galahad Clark. So on that note, I'll leave you and say goodbye.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good day.